I could see the car now driving in, so he will be pulling up in the shot that you can see there. That is the Portico by the west wing of the White House there, the Oval Office behind, and I can see Netanyahu just driving past us here now in his armoured vehicle. Donald Trump has appeared at the doors of the West Wing now, so any moment now the two men will meet and they will head in for their talks.
We're going to stay on these images, Mark. As you can say, we can see President Trump standing there, raising a fist to the cameras there, as he is often want to do. And Mark, you made the point that it isn't just this 21-point plan, is it? It is the future. Well, let's listen and see what we can hear.
Mr. President, do we have a deal, sir? Trump, are you confident, sir, there'll be peace in Gaza anytime soon? And the 21-point plan, is everyone on board?
Will we have a deal today, Mr. President?
Mr. Prime Minister, have you agreed to the deal?
Let's listen now. We can see there that the US President and the Israeli Prime Minister entering the room. As is customary, you get the US reporters standing for the arrival of the President, but this is an important day. Let's listen.
So this is a big, big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization. Things that have been going on for hundreds of years and thousands of years. We're going to, at least we're at a minimum very, very close, and I think we're beyond very close. And I want to thank Bibi for really getting in there and doing a job. We've worked well together, as we have with many other countries, both of us, with many other countries, which is the only way this whole situation gets solved. And I'm not just talking about Gaza. Gaza is one thing, but we're talking about much beyond Gaza. The whole deal, everything getting solved. It's called peace in the Middle East. So today is a historic day for peace, and Prime Minister Netanyahu and I have just concluded an important meeting on many vital issues, including Iran, trade, the expansion of the Abraham Accords, and most importantly, we discussed how to end the war in Gaza, but it's just a part of the bigger picture, which is peace in the Middle East. And let's call it eternal peace in the Middle East. So this is far more than anybody expected, but the level of support that I've had from the nations in the Middle East and surrounding Israel and neighbors of Israel has been incredible, incredible. Every single one of them. This afternoon, after extensive consultation with our friends and partners throughout the region, I'm formally releasing our principles for peace, which people have really liked, I must say. And these are done not just routinely done, these are done with total consideration and working with the nations that we're talking about. All of these nations have made contributions to those suggestions. I want to thank the leaders of many Arab and Muslim nations for their tremendous support in developing the proposal, along with many of our allies in Europe. Europe has been very much involved, and as I was called by many of the European leaders, most of them saying, is this true? Are you really doing peace in the Middle East? This is the most incredible thing we've heard. Some think it's the biggest thing they've ever heard. They called just to find out, was it just a rumor or is it actually done? And then they said, have you spoken to the Arab leaders? Have you spoken to all of the other leaders that we have to get? A lot of people involved in this one. I also want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for agreeing to the plan and for trusting that if we work together, we can bring an end to the death and destruction that we've seen for so many years, decades, even centuries, and begin a new chapter of security, peace, and prosperity for the entire region. And I want to just say that my meetings and dialogue that we had with so many countries, Saudi Arabia as an example, the king, He's a phenomenal person. The Emir of Qatar, he's incredible people. UAE, and that's MBZ and ABZ. We're totally involved. These are the people that we've been dealing with and who've been actually very much involved in this negotiation, giving us ideas, things they can live with, things they can't live with. Pretty complex. I mean, after 2,000, 3,000 years, whatever it is, I guess it's got to be a little complex, or it would have been done a long time ago. The King of Jordan was with us, as you know, in the United Nations. The President of Turkey, President Erdogan, is a friend of mine, a strong man, but a good man. President of Indonesia, somebody who's an amazing leader, Prabowo. He is an amazing leader and respected by everybody. He was in the room with us. We were together with most of these people that I'm mentioning. Others were by phone or the next day. The Prime Minister and the Field Marshal of Pakistan, they were with us right from the beginning. Incredible. In fact, they just put out a statement that they fully believe in this pact. It just came out just as I was walking around. They said, sir, you have a big notice from the Prime Minister of Pakistan and from the Field Marshal that they back this 100%. President El-Sisi of Egypt, who's terrific. And these are people I've gotten to know over the years. I mean, I would say it started around 2015 and then went into 2016 when the presidency officially began. But I've known him actually for a long time, and there are many cases really great men. I can't say in all cases, but I will tell you in many cases they're great men and some great women too. They tend to be mostly men, however, I will say that. But if accepted by Hamas, this proposal calls for the release of all remaining hostages immediately, but in no case more than 72 hours. So the hostages are coming back, and I hate even saying this from the standpoint, doesn't sound right, but it is so important to the parents. The bodies of the young men, I believe in almost all cases, the young men are coming back immediately. I met with parents. The parents felt as strongly about getting the body of their dead boy back as they did as though the boy were alive and well. It's so important to them. And it means the immediate end to the war itself, not just Gaza. It's the war itself. Under the plan, Arab and Muslim countries have committed, and in writing in many cases, but I actually would take their word for it. The people I mentioned, I'd take their word for it, to demilitarize Gaza, and that's quickly. Decommission the military capabilities of Hamas and all other terror organizations. Do that immediately. And we're relying on the countries that I named and others to deal with Hamas. And I'm hearing that Hamas wants to get this done too, and that's a good thing. And destroy all terror infrastructure, including the tunnels, weapons of production facilities. They have a lot of production facilities that we're destroying. They'll also help train local police forces in the areas that we're discussing right now, in particular in and around Gaza. Working with the new transitional authority in Gaza, all parties will agree on a timeline for Israeli forces to withdraw in phases. They'll be withdrawing in phases. No more shooting, hopefully. As progress is made toward achieving these goals, Arab and Muslim nations need to be allowed the chance to fulfill these commitments of dealing with Hamas. They have to deal with them because they were the one group that we have not dealt with. I haven't dealt with them. But the Arab countries are going to, and Muslim countries are going to be dealing with Hamas, and I believe they've already been there. I think they probably have an understanding, and they haven't maybe mentioned that, but I would imagine they do. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone as far as they've gone. If they're unable to do so, then Israel would have the absolute right and actually our full backing, the U.S. full backing. Marco's here, and a lot of our leaders are here, our great Vice President, Susie Wiles, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. They've been so involved in this process. I don't think anybody else could have done it or even come close, but it's we're right there. We're right there. First time in thousands of years, I think you can probably say, if you really look into it, if you study back, if you're a scholar, you would say thousands of years. Israel would have my full backing to finish the job of destroying the threat of Hamas. But I hope that we're going to have a deal for peace. And if Hamas rejects the deal, which is always possible, they're the only one left. Everyone else has accepted it. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do. Everyone understands that the ultimate result must be the elimination of any danger posed in the region, and that danger is caused by Hamas. The tyranny of terror has to end, and this is, again, something that we're looking for. This is eternity. This is for forever. To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, the Board of Peace, sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace, which will be headed, not at my request, believe me, I'm very busy, but we have to make sure this works. The leaders of the Arab world and Israel and everybody involved asked me to do this, so it would be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States. That's what I want, is some extra work to do, but it's so important that I'm willing to do it, and we'll do it right, and we're going to put leaders from other countries on, and leaders that are very distinguished leaders, and we'll have a board, and one of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others. And they'll be named over the next few days. And it'll be quite the board. Working, everybody wants to be on it now. I don't know if that had anything to do. They named me and everybody else wanted to be on it. I guess they figure, well, he's a soft touch. He'll be easy to deal with. Working with the World Bank and others, it will be responsible for recruiting and training a new government that will be made up of Palestinians, along with highly qualified experts from all around the world. Hamas and other terrorist factions will play no role in the board, but they'll play no role in the governance of Gaza at all, directly or indirectly. As you know, thousands of Hamas leaders have been killed and soldiers have been killed. And we can never forget October 7th, but thousands have paid the price for that. And now it's time to get our hostages back and get back to trying to build something that's really great and very important. In our meeting today, Prime Minister Netanyahu was very clear about his opposition to a Palestinian state. And he continuously mentions October 7th, and I understand that. Most people do. And I understand and respect his position on many things, but what he's doing today is so good for Israel. And I noticed that they have large crowds gathering in Israel all the time, and they have my name up. They like me for whatever reason, Bibi, I don't know, but they do like me. But they say two things: please get the hostages back and please end the war. They've had it. It's had it. So I think it's a very popular thing you do, because he's a warrior. He doesn't know about getting back to a normal way of life, but he is a warrior, and Israel's lucky to have him. But now the people want to get back to peace. They want to get back to normalization in a true sense. Several countries have foolishly recognized the Palestinian state. As you know, some of our European friends, allies, good people, but they're really, I think, doing that because they're very tired of what's going on for so many decades. They've been presidents and prime ministers for years, and during this time, having to do with the Middle East, all they're doing is talking about the same thing over and over. They want to see it get back. And nobody wants that more than me, or I believe Bibi too. But the people of Israel want it. They really want it. They want the hostages back. That includes the probably 32 bodies that we're talking about, 20 people that are living, 32 or so people that are dead, and they want to have peace. So let us not forget how we got here. Hamas was elected by the Palestinian people. Israel withdrew from Gaza thinking they would live in peace. Remember that a long time ago, they withdrew. They said, you take it. This is our contribution to peace. But that didn't work out. That didn't work out. It was the opposite of peace. They pulled away. They let them have it. And I never forgot that, because I said, that doesn't sound like a good deal to me. As a real estate person, I mean, they gave up the ocean, right? Ron, they gave up the ocean. They said, who would do this deal? And it still didn't work out. They were very generous, actually. And they gave up the most magnificent piece of land in many ways in the Middle East. And they said, all we want to do now is have peace. And that request was not honored. Instead of building a better life for the Palestinians, Hamas diverted resources to build over 400 miles of tunnels and terror infrastructure, rocket production facilities, and hid their military command posts and launch sites in hospitals, schools, and mosques. So if you went after them, you'd be after them, and you wouldn't even realize you ended up knocking out a hospital or school or a mosque. That terrible thing, terrible, terrible way to have to fight. No fight is good, but that's a real bad one. So there are many Palestinians who wish to live in peace. Many. I've seen so many of them. And they have support. And I challenge the Palestinians to take responsibility for their destiny, because that's what we're giving them. We're giving them responsibility for their destiny, fully condemn and prohibit terrorism and earn their way to a brighter future. They don't want the life that they've had. They've had a rough life with Hamas. If the Palestinian Authority does not complete the reforms that I laid out in my vision for peace in 2020, they'll have only themselves to blame. We're giving them an amazing footprint, and they have amazing support from the leaders of the Arab world and the Muslim world, the great leaders. These are great leaders. These are unbelievable leaders that have built great countries and very wealthy countries. What the future holds for the Palestinians, no one really knows, but the plan that we put forward today is focused on ending the war immediately, getting all of our hostages back, getting everything back. Hard to believe when you even say it, and creating conditions for durable Israeli security and Palestinian success. Israeli security is going to be involved. We're going to help you. We'll be there with you in terms of helping with security. We want to make sure it works. We just want to make sure it works. There shouldn't be a shot fired. Now, there will be, I guess, because that's the way it seems to be, but they shouldn't have to be within a few days. There shouldn't have to be a shot fired. Maybe for eternity. Wouldn't that be nice? I hope it's true. I can tell you the leadership of that region feels that there's a good chance of it being true. So this will lead to this agreement that we're talking about will lead to a sustainable long-term peace. No president in history has been a greater friend of the state of Israel than I have, in addition to negotiating the Abraham Accords. I like to say it that way because the real people, that's what they call Abraham. I would say Abraham, but it's so much nicer when you say Abraham. So much more elegant. But the Abraham Accords are amazing. Jared, you did that along with your group of geniuses, and nobody thought that could be done. We have 4 countries, and Sleepy Joe Biden didn't do a thing. He didn't even know what the hell they were. He should have had them fold up. But I think this will also lead to packing them. And who knows, maybe even Iran can get in there. I hope, we hope we're going to be able to get along with Iran. I think they're going to be open to it. I really believe that. But they could be a member. I long ago said, I'll bet you at some point Iran will be a member of the Accords, and little did I realize it was going to take this turn. That was some turn we did with the B-2s. But I think they might very well be there because it's a great thing for them economically. I recognize the eternal capital of Israel. I opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. That was something that everyone said would never be done, could never be done. Virtually every president for many, many years, for decades, would campaign on making Jerusalem the capital of Israel. They campaigned on it over and over. Is that right, Steve? Is that right? Everyone, and when they got to it, and I understand why now, because it was so. When I got to office, I campaigned on it too. I said, we're going to make it. And then I'd get calls from the leaders of various countries saying, please don't do it, please don't do it. It'll end the whole world, please don't do it. And finally, I just didn't say anything, and I did it. People were calling me before I did it because I heard I was going to do it, and leaders of countries were calling me, and I think it was on a Thursday that I did it, and they'd call me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3-4 times a day, and I said, tell them I'll call them back on Friday. And I announced it on Thursday, and I called them back, the biggest people in the world, and they said, you've done it. I said, done what? You've made the capital of Israel, Jerusalem, and we wanted to talk yet. I wish you called me a little sooner. Maybe I could have done something about it. So that was a lot easier than getting into an argument, because I knew what they were calling about. And you know what? It turned out to be amazing. Everybody thought it was going to lead to the end of the world, right? The end of the world, Ron, that's what they said. It didn't lead to anything. It just led to something that I promised, and something that was very, very popular for Jewish people and a lot of other people, too. I recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and I cut taxpayer funding to the corrupt United Nations Relief and Works Agency. And United Nations was interesting because, as you know, a few days ago, they introduced me. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, I'm looking at my teleprompter, and the thing was dead, stone cold, dead. The thing's up here. I have a long, beautiful speech to make. I'm back 30 feet back, and I'm saying, they're introducing me. There's nothing on my teleprompter. So, but I made a speech. I actually got good marks. You think Biden could have done that? I don't think so. I don't think he could have done that. I don't think too many people could have done it. But actually, it was actually more of a speech from my heart, if you want to know the truth. I think it was maybe better in certain ways because it was from the heart. It has to be from the heart. Otherwise, you're in big trouble. But I cut taxpayer funding for that very corrupt United Nations Relief and Works Agency, and nobody thought that would be done, and withdrew from the horrible Iran nuclear deal that was imposed upon Israel by Barack Hussein Obama and Biden. And I don't think Biden knew anything about it, though. I don't think he knows anything about it now, actually, if you ask him. He'd say, what is that? And we obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity, making it impossible for them to have a nuclear weapon, which they would have had probably in about 2 months from that. But I've never asked Israel to compromise its security, but we had big, strong talk. Nobody's been better to Israel. No president's been better to Israel than Donald Trump. But we had a long, strong talk, Bibi and I, and he understands it's time. It's time. History has shown, and the people of Israel want it. And the people of the Middle East want it. The people of enemies of Israel want it, but they don't have really too many enemies right now. And you know what? Many countries have gained great respect for Israel, for the way they fight, for the job they do, including me. I had respect anyway, but they gained respect. History has shown us that those who have relations with Israel have thrived, while those who have devoted resources and attention toward the destruction and even annihilation of Israel have languished. They haven't done well. Israel is not going anywhere. They're going to coexist with other people and countries in the region, from Syria to Lebanon to Saudi Arabia. The promise of a new Middle East is so clearly within our reach. This is the closest we've ever come to real peace, not fake peace, not political fool's peace. If we can get this difficult problem solved, the opportunities for all within that vast region of this world, it's a vast region, it's unlimited. The Abraham Accords show that all countries are better off when they communicate and work together and embrace new opportunities. I hope Jared and Steve and Susie and Marco and JD, we have great people. I hope you guys are going to work very hard to get these other countries in, because now they have no excuse. There's no longer an excuse. They were somewhere hesitant. And I tell you, the 4 countries that went in, I give them tremendous credit, and it's worked out incredibly well for them. In the same spirit, I'm pleased to report that earlier today, we took another important step toward greater understanding in the region. A short time ago, we had a historic phone call in the Oval Office with Prime Minister Tani, who's really a great person. So we had a great talk, and I was on the phone, and Bibi was talking. Prime Minister Al Thani was of Qatar. They really had a heart-to-heart conversation. It was a great conversation, I thought. It was productive. It was everything that you need to have something turn out to be successful. And I want to thank Bibi, and I want to thank the Prime Minister. It was fantastic. We agreed to launch a formal trilateral mechanism between Israel, Qatar, and the United States to begin a dialogue to enhance mutual security, correct misperceptions, and avoid future misgivings. And I want to thank Qatar, its leadership, and the Emir. He's a fantastic person. I think, I'm going to be his public relations man because I know him differently than a lot of people know him. But he wants peace. He wants to see peace. And his people, and they really acknowledge the critical role that they've played as mediator. And again, we're not quite finished. We have to get Hamas, but I think they're going to be able to do that. So now it's time for Hamas to accept the terms of the plan that we've put forward today. And again, this is a different Hamas than we were dealing with, because I guess over 20,000 have been killed. Their leadership has been killed 3 times over. So you're really dealing with different people than we've been dealing with over the last 4 years, 5 years. Everyone has done their part and come to the table in good faith. Our Arab and Muslim partners are fully prepared to step up and fulfill their commitments for the benefit of the people of Gaza and the entire region. They're willing to step up and do a lot. They really are. There are a lot of good people involved. Everybody who wants to see an end to the violence and destruction should be united in calling for Hamas to accept the extremely fair proposal so that we can end the war and get us back our hostages right now and have everlasting peace. And I look forward to having relationships with everyone. As the chairman of the board, I'll be involved, and we'll have meetings with some very smart people that'll be working over there to make sure that we haven't just been wasting time with an agreement that doesn't get done. The task of building peace will not be easy. There are some of the hardest problems in the world to solve, and that's why it's been going on for so many centuries. But too many lives are at stake not to try, and this is more than a try. I mean, I think this is something that gets done when you have virtually every country, and these are powerful, powerful countries that have a lot of money, and the money can make things happen. A lot of countries try, and they don't have any money. These are very rich countries that can make things happen. So together we'll forge a much safer and more hopeful future for everybody, including Israel. And I want to thank Prime Minister Netanyahu for his partnership. And I want to thank all of the leaders, the kings and the emirs and the presidents and prime ministers, people I mentioned. And they've been absolutely fantastic to work with. And it's just happened very quickly. It's happened from a couple of weeks before I had a couple of meetings, but a couple of weeks before we went to the United Nations, and we had some incredible meetings. It all came to place. It all took place, and everybody wanted to be a part of it. I don't have anybody that's saying we don't want anything to do with it. It's just the opposite. And I'll tell you, a year ago, I don't think we would have had this kind of participation, Mr. VP, right? I don't think we would have had. It's been amazing. The participation was 100%. Everybody wants to be a part of it. And everybody, those very strong countries, everybody wants it to work. So, Bibi, congratulations on this. I think this will be your crowning achievement, frankly. If this all works out, we think it will. It's going to be your crowning achievement. And I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you, please.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. President, first I want to thank you for graciously hosting me once again in the White House. And second, I want to thank you for your friendship and for your leadership. From Jerusalem to Tehran, from the Golan Heights to Gaza, you've proven time and again what I've said many times. You are the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House. And Mr. President, you and I both know it's not even close. While you focus at home on making America great again, your leadership abroad is changing the world for the better, ending wars and advancing peace. I believe that today we're taking a critical step towards both ending the war in Gaza and setting the stage for dramatically advancing peace in the Middle East, and I think beyond the Middle East, in very important Muslim countries. I support your plan to end the war in Gaza, which achieves our war aims. It will bring back to Israel all our hostages, dismantle Hamas's military capabilities, end its political rule, and ensure that Gaza never again poses a threat to Israel. We would not have achieved this turning point without the courage and sacrifice of our incredibly brave soldiers. They fight like lions to defend the people of Israel, and they serve on the front line in the war between civilization and barbarism. Mr. President, when our two countries stand shoulder to shoulder, we achieve the impossible. Just a few months ago, in Operation Rising Lion and Operation Midnight Hammer, we struck a decisive blow against Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile program. Your bold decision to send those B-2s made the region safer and the world safer. Now, under your leadership, we're taking the next step to win the war and expand the peace. Your plan is consistent with the 5 principles my government set for the end of the war and the day after Hamas. Everybody asks, what is your plan for the day after Hamas? Here's our plan. Passed it in the cabinet. All our hostages, both those who are alive and those who died, all of them will return home immediately. Hamas will be disarmed. Gaza will be demilitarized. Israel will retain security responsibility, including a security perimeter for the foreseeable future. And lastly, Gaza will have a peaceful civilian administration that is run neither by Hamas nor by the Palestinian Authority. If Hamas agrees to your plan, Mr. President, the first step will be a modest withdrawal, followed by the release of all our hostages within 72 hours. The next step will be the establishment of an international body charged with fully disarming Hamas and demilitarizing Gaza. I appreciate your willingness to lead the body, Mr. President. I really appreciate it because you have a lot of things to do, and this is important. And it reflects the confidence that this will give everyone, that things will be followed up on all the commitments made. The fact that you're taking this on, I think, helps a lot to make sure that everything flows in the direction that we want. Now, if this international body succeeds, we will have permanently ended the war. Israel will conduct further withdrawals linked to the extent of disarmament and demilitarization, but will remain in the security perimeter for the foreseeable future. I think we should understand that we're giving everybody a chance to have this done peacefully, something that will achieve all our war objectives without any further bloodshed. But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way, but it will be done. We prefer the easy way, but it has to be done. All these goals must be achieved because we didn't fight this horrible fight, sacrifice the finest of our young men to have Hamas stay in Gaza and threaten us again and again and again with these horrific massacres. Mr. President, I was encouraged by your clear statement at the UN against the recognition of a Palestinian state. That would be an outcome that, after October 7th, would reward terrorism, undermine security, and endanger Israel's very existence. As for the Palestinian Authority, I appreciate your firm position that the PA can have no role whatsoever in Gaza without undergoing a radical and genuine transformation. In your 2020 peace plan, which you mentioned just now, you made clear what that transformation requires. It's not lip service. It's not checking a box. It's a fundamental, genuine, and enduring transformation. And that means ending pay to slay, changing the poisonous textbooks that teach hatred to Jews, to Palestinian children, stopping incitement in the media, ending lawfare against Israel at the ICC, the ICJ, recognizing the Jewish state, and many, many other reforms. It won't come as a surprise to you that the vast majority of Israelis have no faith that the PA Leopard will change its spots. But rather than wait for this miraculous transformation, your plan provides a practical and realistic path forward for Gaza in the coming years, in which Gaza will be administered neither by Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority, but by those committed to a genuine peace with Israel. I think this can be not only a new beginning for Gaza, I think it can be a new beginning for the entire region. Under your leadership, we can re-energize, well, I've got to contribute my own, we can re-energize the Abraham Accords. That's what it's called in the original Hebrew, Abraham. Abraham is fine, Abraham, however you want to call it. Under your leadership, Mr. President, we can re-energize the Abraham Accords that we forged 5 years ago. We can expand them to many more Arab and Muslim nations that choose moderation over extremism. I think there's an opportunity here. It's not going to be easy, it's tough going, but I think if we succeed, you're absolutely right. We're going to open possibilities that nobody even dreamed of. But I think we dream of them. As you've told me, Mr. President, and you've told the world many, many times, you said, remember October 7th. Remember October 7th. And we do. We will never forget the horrors of October 7th, and we will do whatever is necessary to make sure they don't happen again. Since October 7th, Israel's enemies have learned a hard truth. Those who attack us pay a heavy price, but those who partner with us advance progress and security for their peoples. President Trump just said it, it's also in the Bible. It says, those who will bless you will be blessed, and those who will curse you will be cursed. And that's actually what is happening. We want the blessings. I think we've done a lot in the past 2 years to end the curse. We're not finished, but we've done a lot. And we've done a lot together to end the curse. I want to thank your entire team for their efforts to get to this point. I especially want to thank Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner for their indefatigable work to bring Israel and Arab states in the region closer together. I am deeply grateful to both of them for their work. We had a phone call today just to make it clear. I said to the Prime Minister of Qatar, Israel was targeting terrorists, wasn't targeting Qatar. And of course, we regretted the loss of the Qatari citizen, wasn't our target. And I very much appreciate President Trump's proposal to have a trilateral body, the United States, Israel, and Qatar, to work out respective grievances. There are quite a few. But if we could try to mitigate them or put it on a different footing, I think that'll be good for everyone. Above all the people, the fine team, and many helpers who've done this, I want to thank you, Mr. President. History has already shown that under your leadership, Israel and America can change the face of the Middle East. And today I'm hopeful that your plan to end the war in Gaza will do so again and do so soon. It will free our hostages, end Hamas's tyranny in Gaza, and enable a more secure and prosperous future for the peoples of our region. Thank you, Mr. President. May God bless America. May God bless Israel. May God bless the indispensable alliance between our countries. And may I add in Hebrew, G'mal Chatima Tova, may we all be inscribed in the book of life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bibi. So I think while we wait for these documents to be signed and get everybody in line, I think it maybe is not really appropriate to take questions. I'm meeting with, as you know, a couple of Democrats in a little while about the country, about keeping our country open. They're going to have to do some things because their ideas are not very good ones. They're very bad for our country. So we'll see how that works out. But this is something that was really historic today. This was something that was amazing. I think, Bibi, I mean, depending on you, I think while we're waiting for signatures and waiting for approvals from a lot of different countries that are involved in this, we probably shouldn't take questions? Or would you like to take a question or two from perhaps a friendly Israeli reporter, if there's such a thing?
That's a very, very tough proposition. But I would think, Mr. President, that I would go by your instinct that this is, we'll have enough time for questions. Let's settle the issue first, I think.
Thank you very much, Eddie. Thank you.
Well, that concludes the press conference at the White House. Donald Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister announcing their comprehensive peace plan for the conflict in Gaza. Now it is time for Hamas to accept this peace plan, the president said. Benjamin Netanyahu saying he supports this plan to end the war. Saying if Gaza rejects this plan, we will finish the job. Benjamin Netanyahu saying he believes that this will not just be a new beginning for Gaza, but for the entire region. Donald Trump giving quite a few details there. He said it wouldn't be appropriate for them to take questions from journalists until those documents are signed. Let's bring in our world presenter, Yalda Hakim, who was watching that press conference closely. The big question tonight, Yalda, is peace in the Middle East that little bit closer?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I think anyone who knows the region knows how complex the situation is on the ground. An idea of peace between these two parties has been floated for decades. So we'll have to wait and see exactly where we end up, SJ. But I just want to reflect on where we were a week ago when we were at the UN General Assembly. And I met with a number of Arab leaders from the region, whether it was the UAE, the Saudis, the Qataris. And they told me it was the first time that they were so optimistic in more than 20 months of this particular war, that they felt that Donald Trump was incredibly firm. Steve Witkoff was in all of those meetings with them. And they said that Steve Witkoff also said that they were going to basically not ask Benjamin Netanyahu whether he wanted to do this, but tell him. So this, I guess, has been very direct conversations behind closed doors. We'll have to wait and see, SJ, exactly how this plan comes about, because it is perhaps the most detailed plan that we have seen so far in what, and I'm looking at some of this. I mean, some of the things that I can see here are quite similar to a plan that that Joe Biden and Antony Blinken had put together. You know, things like the returning all the remaining hostages within 24 hours of an agreement, the access to an increased amount of humanitarian aid into Gaza, the gradual withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Strip. These are things that we've seen in the past, but what we should focus on is what's not in this particular agreement. And what's not is, for example, some of the wild ideas that frankly, in the end, drove some of these Arab states to the brink. And they did tell Donald Trump that, for example, the annexation of the West Bank was a red line for the United Arab Emirates. They made this known not just publicly, but they made it known to the White House. They sent a message to the White House. And when Donald Trump was with them in that meeting with Steve Witkoff, they basically told him that they would not accept the annexation of the West Bank. The other things like, for example, turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, that is also not in this particular plan. This acceptance that forced expulsion of the Palestinians would be akin to ethnic cleansing. So that isn't something that they would push to get over the line. So we really have to focus on what is in this particular plan and what isn't. I think what's clear for Israel is that they believe that Hamas has no role in the future of Gaza. But I guess the question is, getting from the position that Hamas is in now, where they're holding these hostages captive, and we'll have to wait and see how Hamas responds. And I suspect the Qataris will twist their arm and have them release these hostages. There is a big space between that and exactly which Palestinian group, whether it's the Palestinian Authority or various other Palestinian technocrats and leaders, whether they end up forming some kind of group that oversees the management of Gaza. Let's just bring in our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who's also been listening in. Mark, I mean, it is, on the one hand, quite an extraordinary moment, what we're seeing here. It's a combination of all the things that you and I heard when we were in New York last week, what the Arab leaders were telling us, the Muslim majority leaders that met with Donald Trump on the sidelines of the General Assembly. I'm kind of focused on what's missing in this document and in this plan, which frankly was tilted towards the desires and the demands of Israel's far right. The sorts of things like annexation, for example, turning Gaza into the Riviera of the Middle East, which caused a lot of alarm. I guess the big question is, where do the Palestinians sit in all of this and the future of Gaza?
Well, nowhere, in a word. I mean, the key part that is missing is Hamas. They've got to sign up to this in the short term, if any of it is to last beyond the next day. I think the most telling part of what we've just seen unfold over the course of the past hour is the fact that neither men took any questions, neither Trump nor Netanyahu, both of whom absolutely love a press conference. They love to hold the room, to bat away all sorts of different questions. They didn't. Why? Because this plan is very much incomplete. It is incomplete until the point at which Hamas, like it or not, agree to it. Now, it may well be the case that they believe, that the White House administration and the Israelis and the wider Gulf Arab countries believe that Hamas is now in a position where it is so weak that it has to agree to this. That may well be the case, but let's see. They have not agreed to it just yet. And on that, some quite chilling language from the American president, where he basically repeated what he said before, which is that if Hamas doesn't agree to this, well then, Bibi, you can go ahead and do what you need to do. A couple of other fascinating points, I think. I mean, you say that the whole Gaza Riviera thing is not there. It's not in the sense that Palestinians are not being told they have to leave the Gaza Strip, but there is a very interesting point there where it's point 10, where it says many thoughtful investment proposals and exciting development ideas have been crafted by well-meaning international groups and will be considered to synthesize the security and governance frameworks to attract and facilitate these investments that can create jobs, opportunity and the hope for the future Gaza. Now, if you are looking at this in a positive way, if you're an optimist, then you see that as wholly positive for Palestinians to redevelop their land. If you're a cynic, then you will see this as quite the opposite, as an opportunity for Western investment into the Gaza Strip. Who knows what role Palestinians would have down the line? And remember, for now, there is not one single Palestinian figure named in this document. In fact, only two individuals are named in this document by name. One is Donald Trump, who would effectively chair and head, with other members and heads of state to be announced, the Board of Peace, effectively the kind of kingmaker over the Gaza Strip. And the other person whose name is mentioned is former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Now, his name, as you and I were discussing in New York last week, has been mentioned for so long. We know he's had a key role behind the scenes in terms of what he believes he can do in Gaza. We'll have a listen to this. I spoke last month, or earlier this month, in fact, to a senior advisor to the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. And I said to him earlier this month, what do you make of these Blair rumours? And I've asked him again today, and he stands by the following quote. He says, Palestinians in general don't see Mr. Blair as anything else than a war criminal and a mercenary, and do not expect anything positive to come from his involvement in a region he has already damaged. The legacy of Iraq and Tony Blair hangs heavy over the Middle East. Now, it may be the case that other Gulf Arab countries have come to a position where they think, well, do you know what? In the absence of anything else, maybe Tony Blair is the answer. But, you know, take it in black and white from a Palestinian in the heart of Ramallah, very close to what the Palestinian street thinking is. They do not like the idea of Tony Blair being involved one bit. So look, to sum up, Yalda, yeah, this is a move, certainly. It's a move by the Americans. It's a move by the Israelis. The Gulf Arabs and wider Muslim countries appear to be behind it in the absence of anything else. But Hamas is missing. The Palestinians are missing. There is a long way to go.
Yeah, indeed, very much so. Mark, we're going to keep you there and bring in our Adam Parsons. And Mark, you mentioned there about getting more voices from the Palestinians. In about an hour or so, we will be speaking to someone in Ramallah. But let's just bring in our Middle East correspondent, Adam Parsons, in Jerusalem to get reaction from there. Adam, just give us a sense of how this is being read in Jerusalem, where you are this evening.
Yeah, well, rather incongruously, behind me, you can probably hear quite a loud concert going on. I hasten to add, this is not a celebratory concert on the back of this announcement. I think there will be a lot of wait and seeing going on. Various contacts that I've been in touch with have said words to that effect of, well, I'm a little more confident than I was, but let's just wait and see how this one plays out. And then others are saying that this is a triumph of Donald Trump's megalomania, to quote one contact of mine, but it may yet play out into a successful plan. So I think there are all sorts of tectonic plates now moving for Mr. Netanyahu. For one thing, really interesting that he went into, barely had he got into that meeting, then he was corralled into offering an apology to the state of Qatar for attacking it. I don't think we should pretend that Benjamin Netanyahu walked in and said, by the way, Donald, while I'm here, let's phone the Qataris and I can say sorry for attacking them. I think that was a power play by Donald Trump, and I think that the president laid down the law effectively to Netanyahu and said, I will continue to back you, but I do not want to ostracize the Arab states, so this is the plan, and I think you need to sign up to it. And Benjamin Netanyahu probably looked at that plan and thought, yeah, I can go along with that. Of course, there are enormous questions. What will Hamas say? I mean, I think if you go between the lines, there are bits here where Hamas is not being expunged from history. In fact, Hamas fighters who lay down their weapons will be granted an amnesty, and those who do not accept that will, according to this, be offered passage out of Gaza. But the fact that people who are Hamas fighters will be allowed to stay in Gaza. And let's be honest, there's no longer this effort to kind of destroy the ideology of Hamas. I think that is a move forward, and it may be that pragmatically Hamas thinks that as long as it can keep its tentacles in Gaza, there may be a deal that it can do, because it will release the hostages, but it will stop the war, and it will get an awful lot of its own prisoners back. But there is also a big political consideration for Mr. Netanyahu, whose government is propped up notably by Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir, two far-right politicians who have both responded with absolutely devastating messages tonight, not even on the basis of this plan, merely on the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu offered an apology to Qatar in both of their cases. So to take them in order, Mr. Ben-Gvir wrote a tweet saying so there was nothing to apologise for, this was wrong, Qatar was a terrorist state that had blood on its hands, and then Smotrich later on compared Netanyahu to Neville Chamberlain appeasing the Nazis. So these are the people who are propping up Netanyahu's government. Hard to see how that carries on, and I think most people here think that at some point those two will collapse the government. But what we don't know is whether that could happen tomorrow when Benjamin Netanyahu comes back from Washington. He's got a cabinet meeting here at 8 o'clock in the evening local time, or whether they bide their time until they think it is right for them to call another election. I think this deal certainly makes his government less solid. It makes a peace deal more likely. If he can bring home the hostages, the 20 living and probably 28 dead, although Donald Trump suggested a figure 32, not quite clear where that came from. If he can do that deal, bring home the hostages, end the war, stop the casualties being suffered by the Israeli military, stop that increasing purveyance, I have to say, of anger over the number of people who are being killed by the daily bombardments in Gaza. I think Netanyahu's gamble is that he will be seen as a statesman, and that may increase his probably rather slender chances of being re-elected. But this is a terribly complicated tendril, and as we've all been saying, until we get an indication of the reaction from Hamas or from the Palestinian Authority, it is really hard to know how this one is going to play out.
Yeah, indeed, very much. And as you say, that noise behind you, there's always a concert in Jerusalem blaring behind you. But Adam, thank you so much for all of your assessment there. We were just showing you that press conference between President Donald Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Donald Trump has said it is time now for Hamas to accept this 21-point peace proposal that he says that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is agreeing to, which will result in the release of the remaining hostages, access of an increased amount of humanitarian aid into Gaza. And we'll have to wait and see whether the other points of the plan can somehow be reached. We will be waiting to see how Hamas responds to this and the other Palestinians. We will be speaking to Palestinians in Ramallah in about 35 minutes' time on my programme, The World. But for now, SJ, back to you.
Yalda, thanks. See you at 9 o'clock. Well, President Trump, you heard a little earlier, said that the committee to rebuild Gaza will be made up of Palestinians and international experts, among them former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Let's speak to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, about this official announcement of Blair's involvement, because it had been mooted for some time, John.
It's controversial, but it's not a surprise. That's because, indeed, Sir Tony Blair, as he now is, of course, has been one of the key architects of this peace plan. The plan for Gaza, the transition, it's a Blair blueprint to a large extent. He visited the White House in August to discuss it with White House officials, if not the president himself. And, of course, he's got a long history of involvement in the Middle East, dating back to when he first became British Prime Minister in 1997. Why it's controversial, of course, is his 2003 invasion of Iraq, along with the US President George W. Bush at the time. But going back to the 1990s, 30 years ago almost, he was involved in talks with Arafat and others to try and bring peace in the Middle East. Then, of course, when he left number 10 in 2007, he became a Middle East envoy for what was known as the Quartet, the European Union, United States, Russia and the United Nations. He gets on well with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's another crucial factor. So the President Trump will have said to Netanyahu, "You okay with Tony Blair for this role?" And he obviously has said, yes, that's fine. But it is controversial. It has been criticised already. Here at the Labour Party conference today, the conference with the big unions all voting for it, passed a motion against the party leadership's wishes to accuse Israel of genocide. And this evening, speaking to Sophie Ridge here on Sky News on the Politics Hub, the move was criticised by John McDonnell from the Labour left. Jeremy Corbyn, not surprisingly, no longer in the Labour Party, of course, has also criticised the move. So will be criticised by many on the left here, by all the opponents of the Iraq war. But you can see that from President Trump's point of view, and indeed Benjamin Netanyahu's, it makes sense because he is an experienced negotiator, an experienced go-between power broker in the Middle East going back nearly 30 years. And of course, from these talks with Arafat and others back in the 90s, then his role as the Quartet's envoy in 2007 onwards. And given that he's spent so much time at his institute, the Tony Blair Institute, has been closely involved in drawing up this plan as well. That's why he seems like the obvious choice to take on this transition role. So controversial, yes, but not a surprise given his long experience in the Middle East. And of course, we should point out that Sir Tony, as he now is, of course, he's always sort of wanted to tackle these sort of seemingly intractable international problems. Think back to the Belfast, the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland in 1998. Think back to his role in Kosovo and also in Sierra Leone. He's always wanted to take on these challenges in trouble spots around the world. So he's 72 years old now. It's nearly 20 years since he left Downing Street, but he's still a major figure internationally. Controversial, yes, because of the Iraq war. A lot of countries in the Middle East will not be happy about this. Many Palestinians won't like it, but clearly it's got this big support from President Trump and indeed Netanyahu, and obviously he will try and make a success of it. I mean, it's a tough problem for him to tackle, but of course he's taken on plenty of tough problems in the past, often with success, not always, of course.
John, thank you. John Craig there with the latest from Westminster. Let's just bring you an update on tonight's breaking news. This is coming from Reuters news agency. A Hamas official says the group has not yet received the written Gaza peace plan that was announced earlier this evening by Donald Trump. The announcement made at the White House in a joint press conference around half an hour or so ago between President Trump and the Israeli Prime Minister. So that's a Hamas official saying the group has yet to receive a written Gaza peace deal. Of course, Donald Trump saying it is now time for Hamas to accept this peace plan, but Hamas saying they have no written confirmation of it as of yet. More to come at 9 o'clock with Yalda Hakim in her The World programme.